essential services and responding to community needs at this unprecedented time. And a very big thank you to our healthcare providers, frontline workers in grocery stores, pharmacies, essential services, to the truck drivers, to the folks that are trying to keep our community safe. I'd like to acknowledge teachers who are also finding an amazing and innovative ways to connect with their students as the students are back in class, as they say. It's a virtual class. And from the business perspective, I'd like to acknowledge some local businesses that are helping with donations and supplies. This isn't the entire list. Last council meeting, I outlined some businesses. Here's some more, including universities and colleges. Brock University, Electra, with the help of Councillor Harris and Walker Industries, have donated PPE equipment for our frontline healthcare workers. And these are in the tens of thousands of donations that are being made. Calhoun Sportswear, Lucian Bean, and Links for Greener Learning for helping to make masks for people in our community. Clean Works, Niagara College, Dillon's Distillery for supplying hand sanitizer and sanitizing equipment. A little fun fact is Clean Works is Court Holdings, which is just celebrated their 100th anniversary here in our community. And the founding of that company was pretty much around World War I. So the founder of Court Holdings, it's a foundry, started as a foundry here in St. Catharines, pretty much came out of the wartime effort. And now they've pivoted with their location in Beamsville to produce a sanitizing machine for equipment, which is fantastic. Grape Growers of Ontario donating money to purchase ventilators, and many of the restaurants and food stores donating meals and items to both our shelters, our food banks, and to our frontline healthcare workers. So there's a lot of amazing stories that are coming out of this challenging time for many in our community. We are a compassionate community, we're a caring community, and it's important that we continue to share these stories. And I'll just say thank you to the counselors that are on social media that are doing the same thing out there, not only getting the message across of the importance of staying home, but at the same time sharing all the wonderful stories that are out there. So I want to thank council for coming in today, joining us on this Wednesday afternoon, and I'm looking to the clerk now for the adoption of the agenda.
Through the chair, the following are amendments for the agenda. The appendix for general committee agenda item 2.5, temporary closure of parks and outdoor recreational amenities during the COVID-19 pandemic, was republished to correct the name of the parks bylaw, reference emergency responders and authorized city employees or contractors, and when the bylaw will be in effect. The following items have also been placed in your council sugar sink folder. These are additional correspondence. An item from Thomas Richardson regarding item 2.4, the Glenwood Avenue, South Drive, Highland Avenue reconstruction and Partridge Park development. And correspondence from Conrad and Leanne Lozier and Natalie Melheiser regarding general committee agenda item 2.3, award of engineering services for project P19-020, Avalon Place, Bernhard Street, Embassy Avenue Road, and underground improvements.
Okay, and there is a 2.5 has also been pulled and referred back to staff for next council meeting, just for clarification on some of the items that are in that. So 2.5, which is the temporary closure of parks and recreational amenities. So that bylaw has been pulled and referred to the next staff meeting. And is there any other changes to the agenda? Okay, seeing none. I'll look to the clerk to call the question.
So the referral for the 2.5 is done with the consent agenda as well, to confirm that.
Yes.
So the vote for the consent agenda is, we have a mover as Councillor Littleton and a seconder as Councillor Miller. So
Yeah,
Councillor Littleton?
Yes.
Councillor Miller?
Yes.
Councillor Phillips?
Yes.
Councillor Porter?
Yes.
Councillor Cisco?
Yes.
Councillor Sorrento?
Yes.
Councillor Townsend?
Yes.
Councillor Williamson?
Yes.
Councillor Dodge?
Yes.
Councillor Garcia?
Yes.
Councillor Harris?
Yes.
Councillor Kushner?
Yes.
And Mayor Sendzik?
Yes.
And that's carried.
Okay. So now we have any conflicts of interest on today's meeting? If you do, you just have to put it in writing and also verbally, as we got different screens going here. Adoption of the minutes. Can I have a motion, Councillor Sorrento?
Yeah, so moved, Mr. Mayor.
That council adopt the minutes of council being held Monday, March 9th, 2020, the minutes of general committee meeting held on Monday, March 9th, 2020, and the minutes of special meeting of council held Friday, March 27th, 2020. Seconded by Councillor Townsend.
Yep.
Okay, I'll call all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we will now resolve into general committee. The following items have been requested to be removed from consent to discussion. It's 2.1, financial management services, accounting, payroll, 2019 statement of council remuneration and expenses report by Councillor Williamson. Closure of parks and outdoor recreation amenities during COVID-19 pandemic. That'll be referred to the next meeting of council in order for staff to provide further information. So those are the two that are being pulled from consent. So I'll look to the deputy clerk to have the motion. Councillor Porter, motion for the consent agenda.
The following items be put forward and moved on the consent agenda.
Okay, to the deputy clerk, would you like to read the consent items?
Yeah, so we have two votes. The first one is the referral of the item 2.5. And then when that passes, we would do the full consent agenda. So the first is the referral
Okay.
moved by the mayor. And so I'll start with Councillor Williamson. Sorry, it'll just be a moment. There you go. Councillor Williamson,
Yes.
Councillor Townsend,
Yes.
Councillor Sorrento,
Yes.
Councillor Cisco,
Yes.
Councillor Porter, Councillor Phillips,
Yes.
Councillor Miller,
Yes.
Councillor Littleton,
Yes.
Councillor Kushner,
Yes.
Councillor Harris,
Yes.
Councillor Garcia,
Yes.
Councillor Dodge,
Yes.
and Mayor Senzik.
Yes.
So that referral is carried.
Okay.
So today's consent agenda includes planning and building services, demolition permit, and heritage conservation district 61 Lakeport Road. Item 2.3, award of engineering services for project P19-020 Avalon Place, Bernhard Street, Embassy Avenue Road, and underground improvements. Item 2.4, P17-063 Glenwood Avenue, South Drive, Highland Avenue reconstruction in Partridge Park. Item 2.6, budget standing committee report for agenda item 10.1, being the 2019 year-end report and reserve update. And item 2.7, legal and clerk services council correspondence. So we have Councillor Porter moving that. So we'll start Councillor Porter.
Yes.
Councillor Cisco,
Yes.
Councillor Sorrento, Councillor Sorrento,
Yes.
Councillor Townsend,
Yes.
Councillor Williamson,
Yes.
Councillor Dodge,
Yes.
Councillor Garcia,
Yes.
Councillor Harris,
Yes.
Councillor Kushner,
Yes.
Councillor Littleton,
Yes.
Councillor Miller,
Yes.
Councillor Phillips,
Yes.
and Mayor Senzik,
Yes.
and that's carried.
Okay, and so just for people who would be following along on either YouTube or who will be watching this on your TV Niagara, the consent agenda are items or reports that are submitted by council and that council has had an opportunity to review, ask questions of staff, and then they'll stay on the consent agenda as they haven't been pulled. So these are all reports that staff and council have already reviewed. And now we move on to the discussion agenda. So there are no public meetings. There's no special presentations. So we move on to discussion agenda. We are resolving into general committee. And what's going to happen is our CAO, Shelley Chemnitz, will provide an overview of staff's initiatives for COVID-19. She has a bit of a lengthy overview. We do have a report in our file, in our council packages. In addition to that, Christine Douglas, our Director of Finance, will also be providing an update. So for council, if I can ask you to write your questions down, and then once Ms. Shelley Chemnitz, once CAO Chemnitz and Director Douglas are finished, then we'll open the floor for questions from council. So I'll turn the mic over to the CAO, Ms. Chemnitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. The Municipal Emergency Control Group has been meeting daily to monitor the COVID-19 pandemic. Over this last month, we've all seen and can certainly appreciate that the situation and direction from upper level governments is fluid. It can and often needs to change regularly to respond to the very real challenges we're faced with. As the changes occur, the Municipal Emergency, I'm going to say MECG from now on, that's our control group, assesses and modifies our actions to respond. As much as possible, we look beyond the daily upper level government announcements to prepare our community for future announcements that we see as a logical progression in their decision making. We want to be ready as much as we can be for what may be coming, not just what has already been decided. So in a practical sense, it makes it difficult to provide council with updates through the regular reporting process that we have. You do have a report here before you today, and the intent of that report is to illustrate for council that the control group has been monitoring the situation prior to it becoming a global pandemic and have taken various steps to track the corporation's response. We continue to make decisions as information is received for the safety of our community. So if you think about that, with this report in particular, we write it, staff reviews it, and then it gets published. And throughout that time period, the situation changes and decisions need to be made to address the changes. So the result is that likely our report is not 100% accurate in all instances. Not everything changes, but some items do. What I'll take some time to do here today is to highlight the items from the report and also to verbally give some information regarding changes since the report was published. As well, it's important to note that similar reports will follow in future council meetings. It's a priority for staff that council and the community receive this information update on a regular basis. I would like to make sure that we emphasize for everyone the 4 objectives that the control group is balancing. They're listed in the background of the report, but simplified, they are to provide the essential services, to protect the safety of the public and our employees, to continue to work with our partners at the region and public health and beyond, and to remain economically and fiscally responsible. So starting with our facility closures in the report, our facilities have been closed as we've informed the public until further notice. On March 30th, the provincial emergency order effectively closed our outdoor recreational amenities. And this particular initiative, while it was very necessary from a social distancing perspective, has perhaps caused the most confusion amongst our residents, and we've had many calls and concerns expressed over it. Many of us are into week 4. The weather is nicer. Staying at home is now more crucial than ever, is now becoming more difficult for some of us. And we want to be clear with our messaging to the public. So as you've seen that the bylaw before council today, the mayor has asked that it be referred and will be returning so that we can make that clarity. In the interim, before it comes back, please watch the website, social media, and any other communications to be looking for changes. The next section of the report deals with planning for business community or continuity. Our planning section has been working with departments to plan for business continuity and prepare for the city's response as things continue to evolve. We gather data about essential services, resources required, potential risk and loss, service levels, and dependencies. We are supported and helped by many of our staff throughout the corporation, and we'd like to highlight a few of those things. In particular, our IT department has been helping us with technology, as you see in the council meeting today, as far as a timekeeping portal to capture the status of staff and allowing the corporation to identify staff working from home and positions that are considered essential. It pulls our data directly from our city's payroll system. As in many of the initiatives we've started during this situation, we find that the technological advances that we've been able to implement that our IT section has helped us with will be well utilized for other initiatives as we go through beyond the epidemic. We do have a graph in the report that illustrates the number of city staff working from home. It illustrates the number as to March 26th. That has also increased more significantly over as time has passed. For the Office of the CAO, myself and the Deputy Oakes, we continue to lead the control group in making decisions for the greater good of the corporation and the community. We do also have external touch points. Myself, I'm engaged regularly with other area city CAOs in the region to ensure as much as possible a unified approach to addressing the pandemic, as well as our intermunicipal transit group that's working on bringing our transits much more together and coordinated. The mayor and I also have daily conversations regarding updates, issues, and decisions. Mr. Oakes has very much continued his leadership in the First Ontario Performing Arts Centre as the acting executive director and has remained involved and committed to the success of the 2021 Canada Summer Games. The mayor's office responds to increased volume of concerns from residents and businesses, and communication aspect always in these situations has greatly increased, and their social media presence as well as traditional media channels to increase awareness and share safety messaging has been certainly a very strong focus from the mayor's office. As well, the mayor and his staff continue his role at Regional Council and the Board of Health during this crisis and the liaison for various members of council and the public. Our Corporate Support Services Department, HR, has been also a significant resource for us in these weeks, and they've been supporting us through regarding our timekeeping concerns, our employee assistance program for those who are struggling in the instance and would need some support, policies and procedures, new ones have been developed and implemented, and of course our health and safety initiatives. Part of the efforts include 138 part-time staff that have been placed on a temporary layoff effective this week, and are also our need for the rest of our staff for providing essential services. I already spoke somewhat about our IT division, supporting our staff working from home. I do also want to emphasize that prior to the declaring of it being a global pandemic, we were already watching in the months in advance, and so our IT division had kept back quite a lot of our technology as far as computers, etc., that would have been deployed in our normal course as surplus. And so that when we had to make the decision to bring our staff to working from home, we were able to have a significant larger number of technology to send them home with on this temporary basis. And that was very helpful for helping our own social distancing and keeping the work being done. Citizens First, there's actually been, from their regular days, there's been a slight decrease of incoming calls as circumstances have evolved from around 450 calls a day down to the mid 200s, but it does have peaks and peaks and valleys, and they continue to serve the public. Communications has been very busy as far as we have a new COVID-19 webpage at our stcatharines.ca website. Also, our website visits have been up, our social media channels have been busy, and we have had a very strong focus of directing the public to the appropriate resources in this time, either the NRP, Niagara Region, Niagara Health System, or provincial and federal government, as well as our own channels. Community, recreation, and culture services have been busy. While their programs have been canceled until further notice and the facilities are closed, that staff have been focusing on initiatives to undertake with some of our community partners while we're safely distancing to engage the public in a fun, safe, and healthy way. Our museum staff have provided interesting and insightful programming via social media. Our business services division of CRCS has been remained focused on delivering some of the initiatives that we currently would have had ongoing to continue the sponsorship policy, aquatic strategy, and other initiatives. While we may not have as much of the public involvement in our council meeting, we certainly are engaging, and through our technology, engaging others in the community as well. CRCS is one of the departments that has also loaned staff in a redeployment to our financial management services department to complete preparation of department capital and operating budget. And yes, despite the situation that we're in, the 2021 capital budget process has begun. Our economic development and tourism services have been working hard to ensure that businesses have the supports that they need where we can help them to cope with the current economic downturn. There's a very extensive list within the report. I'm just highlighting a few that they continue the corporate calling program to have an understanding of what local businesses are facing. They have taken a lead role in the rapid response team that is regional mayors and EDO's effort to have a coordinated response to the business community. We've partnered on initiatives to advocate to upper levels of government on economic impact of closures and aggregating the measures of the impact of how COVID-19 has affected, our hospitality business units, and including some of the units that we do serve in our Museum Meridian Center, First Ontario Performing Arts Center. Our small business enterprise section and the Digital Main Street program continue, and they support clients through online events, webinars, and consultations. Government relations has in this time been very busy, providing all of us daily summaries and analysis of the various announcements, programs, and activity at all levels of government. It's been very useful from a senior leadership team. You could watch the TV all day long, and we all have things to do, but the government relations are providing very strong support there. Our expediter services have also been busy maintaining business continuity and providing applicants with assistance through adjusted planning, building application, and approval processes. Engineering, facilities, and environmental services. While we began in our construction division to have our construction and linear infrastructure renewal programs continue while practicing social distancing, we are now, with the most recent orders, having a review of each project individually to ensure that it is essential and critical in accordance with the recent provincial orders. Our facilities division, although facilities closed to the public, we've had work in removing ice from the arenas and shutting down the plants, continuing to undertake some extensive cleaning and preventative maintenance on facilities. With recent provincial orders, this activity is also reducing. Our environmental services division continues to monitor and maintain the drinking water system, most staff working from home except when conducting field investigations. Our inspections in private properties for drinking water sampling and flood alleviation are suspended until further notice. And development of the climate change adaptation plan and pollution control plan continues. However, our public outreach has been suspended. Fire services, certainly as we all are aware, is deemed essential, and since the beginning of March 2020 have been implementing measures to protect the various level of our services, enhanced cleaning as we've done throughout the organization. To note, the Niagara Emergency Medical Services in this time has altered the tiered response agreements. What this means for us as a community is that our regional fire services dispatch to medical calls only that involve cardiac arrest or vital signs absent patients. So that means this is a protective measure for our fire services. We have a reduction in our fire inspections and discontinuation of in-purpose public education, all to find that we are on side with the social and physical distancing orders. We have contingency plans in place to operate with fewer firefighters on duty and only one station open should the progression of the virus necessitate that, as a significant portion of our staff would be unable to report. To this date, we are not having that concern. Our financial management services continues to provide financial guidance for the city, and we will hear more of that from Director Douglas further on. We continue our year-end work from closing of 2019 and our provincial reporting, as well as I had mentioned earlier, the budget work of 2020 has begun. Our parking enforcement services are limited to safety-related issues such as fire routes, accessible parking, no parking, and fire hydrants. Currently, they were limited to 2 staff monitoring. However, in recent time, we have recalled them to help in our enforcement initiatives with larger gatherings. Legal and clerk services has been very busy focusing and reviewing and analyzing the provincial orders as they come through, and to ensure and advising our control group to ensure we are have understood the implications of those orders on our delivery of essential and non-essential services in particular. Legal has also helped working with HR and all of our employer-related impacts, and has helped to develop the bylaw and procedures to enable City Council, General Committee, and Budget Standing Committee to continue to meet during this time using electronic participation. Municipal Works have been responsible for operating and maintaining the city's linear and green infrastructure. In this case of these particular workers, it is not feasible for them to work from home. However, steps have been taken to limit the interaction of staff with the public, as well as staggering shifts and modifying timekeeping and dispatch procedures. Some duties that we do perform, such as in-home water meter exchanges, we have suspended at this time. We continue to install meters for new construction as long as that construction is one that is currently allowed to proceed. Planning and building services. The building division continues to process new and in-queue building applications, and inspecting occupied dwellings is not occurring at this time unless there's a substantial health and safety risk requiring investigation. Our April 4th provincial orders, some residential construction is permitted to continue if the permits were issued prior to April 4th. So we have adjusted our work accordingly. Our bylaw enforcement staff, in addition to the work that they can continue to do, is now undertaking enforcement of the recent provincial emergency orders for non-essential business operations, as well as citizens to ensure they are complying with physical distancing and congregating functions under those orders. I think I probably have talked long enough. I will pass it over to Christine Douglas, who will walk us through the section on financial implications in the report.
Thank you, CAO Chemnitz. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the financial picture is ever evolving, and we are expecting a significant financial hit to the city's 2020 budget. As of April the 3rd, it was estimated to be approximately $2.4 million for the city and its agency boards and commissions. The situation is fluid, and the finance team, along with the city departments, are forecasting the impact along with mitigation options as we go along. Changes in the situation can occur quickly, which in turn changes the financial impact, and that has been currently forecasted. As stated in the report, we are considering all mitigation options, including use of reserves, expenditure reduction and deferral, and cancellation of non-essential expenditures. The city is working with the region in partnership to continue to provide essential services to the residents of St. Catharines, and to both manage our cash flow with our residents experience the financial impact of COVID-19, impacting their ability to meet their tax and water payments, and our own need to be flexible with our residents. Staff are mindful of the economic impact to the community and the need to ensure that our taxpayers' dollars are spent wisely. That concludes my report.
And just to add a couple of things to what CIO Chemnitz has talked about, we have had regular meetings with MPP Biddle and our MP Biddle, MPP Stevens, as well as the Niagara mayors have been meeting on a weekly basis. And economic development through Brian York has been setting up phone calls with a number of different businesses and commercial landlords, just to get an idea of sort of the breadth of the economic situation we're facing. So I just wanted to provide that for context as well. So first hand up is Councillor Miller, you're up.
I should unmute. I'll mute it now. I'm muted myself. Thank you. Thanks for the update, Ms. Douglas and Ms. Chemnitz. Just a question, just a couple quick questions about what we talked about. Can you, to the CAO through the mayor, expand on the 135, the layoffs of part-time staff, of particularly where those are coming from, and if those layoffs ensure that the staff are eligible to apply for things like the emergency relief benefit that the federal government's offering?
Thank you. Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So the city has quite a large number of part-time workforce that work for us 12 months a year. So many of those impacted are in our facilities, the recreational facilities that have been closed. So in arenas, Kiwanis Aquatic Center, and similar facilities and activities that we have. So in our work with those part-time staff, it was important for us that those staff are valuable to us. We want them to return. While presently there isn't work, we aren't having work for them to do. We want them to return. We want to help take care of them in this time when they are not able to work. So that we have contacted them all individually and working through with them support as far as the various supports that the federal government has been offering. As well, part-time staff are not normally, they do not normally enjoy the benefit that our full-time staff do as far as our employee potentials for counseling, our employee family assistance program. So over this period and going forward, because we felt it's an appropriate thing for an employer to do, we have extended that to all of our part-time staff. So they may all use that facility should they wish. There was some initial efforts that we made to see if there was a potential for redeploying them to other operations of the city. However, as our operations continue to contract to respond to what is absolutely essential for us to do, we found those opportunities no longer to be as evident as they were at the beginning. So we've had individual conversations with, I think, reached out to all and are helping them through this process to be supportive to them at the same time.
And just with regards to, thanks for that update and those initiatives to expand. I think that makes a lot of sense to some of those supports. What's the current status of the summer students? I know there's a lot of concern right now that a lot of the relief efforts are leaving post-secondary students out right now who would be expecting to be, entering the workforce for the summer only. Have we suspended, I think we've touched on that maybe at the last meeting, but have we sort of suspended hiring for the summer students for things like Parks and Recreation?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we have rescinded or suspended the student hirings for the summer. It's not an easy decision to make. However, we do have a large population of employees who are currently working for us, and we did have to make some difficult decisions should things turn around, and if we are finding we are needed of their services, we would certainly look into that again. But at this point in time, we're simply the operations that we are continuing are not needful of that workforce.
Okay, and last question, just regards to some of the sort of new technology that's being implemented, which I think is good and exciting. I was a little concerned about something you said in there about timekeeping and future implications. It just sounded a little big brother to me. Can you maybe expand on what we would be looking at in terms of using those timekeeping technology moving forward?
Yeah, sure. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So on any given day, our timekeepers have always been recording are our staff, or are they at work today, or are they away on city business at a conference, for instance? Are they ill? Are they on maternity leave? All those traditional workforce descriptors as to where our workforce is. So we felt early on in this that we could use the payroll system to help us understand the status of our workforce more clearly during this time. So are they working from home? Are they in City Hall Monday, Tuesdays? So essentially, where is everybody and where have we assigned them? And while certainly once this situation of COVID virus is over, we wouldn't be using those same payroll codes. But what has happened in doing that is now that the programmers, developers, and IT have given us a easier facility to effectively query our workforce. So whereas we normally would have had a more cumbersome reporting process, there's a little bit easier now for us to see on our desktop to query and see the status like reports to say, okay, in this department or that department. It's not a widespread access to that. So we would follow the same protocols in that not everybody in City Hall could look at it. You couldn't look at areas that didn't belong to you if you were a director. So we're still maintaining that same employee confidentiality. We're just better able to quickly access the system and say, oh, okay, in a certain department, what's the status of our employees today? So it's really more an analytical data gathering tool to be used very carefully with normal protocols.
Okay, yeah, thanks. I'd just be concerned that I know freelancers, for example, use tracking to track their time spent on certain projects and things. So I sort of would hope we're not asking employees to punch in and say what they were doing every minute of every day sort of thing.
No, not in general to our regular salaried workforce. However, our operational workforce has for always recorded what it is particularly in their timesheet, what they're doing, and that helps us know how much does it cost to fill a pothole or any of those other things. That workforce has always done that because that helps us better analyze what we're doing and budget and prepare for it. So nothing has changed in those active areas. It's really just some more descriptors related to this, and then an access tool that will make it easier for us to extract data.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, thanks, Councillor Miller. Councillor Sorrento has put his hand up on the button below, and Councillor Phillips has waved at the screen. So Councillor Sorrento, you're up.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the CAO. Thank you for the report, and thank you to the senior management team. So of the essential services that are remaining, CAO Chemnitz, are we still maintaining very good service levels? So for example, if the water main breaks or if we have a serious problem with the roads, can you just kind of reassure the citizens of St. Catharines that we are maintaining these services, and speak to it, please?
Yes, thank you, through Mr. Mayor. Yes, certainly our staff, it has been one of the things that has perhaps made the decision-making and the confidence that the emergency control group can proceed with, and that our staff have been, are able to deliver the services that we deem that we need to deliver during this time period. And there hasn't, to my knowledge, been a significant breakdown in any part of the corporation. Our staff have been continuing to work very hard at that.
Okay, great. Mr. Mayor, my second question is this. Director Douglas mentioned the $2.5 million hit, and I don't know if you would care to comment on any of the mitigation efforts that we're using, whether we're going into reserve funds. Would you care to speak to that, CEO Chemnitz?
Thank you. Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So at this point in time, we're very early on estimating what we think the impacts, total financial impacts of this would be. So what you see in the report today is basically finance, and all of the directors have fed into the process where they think their department will be, and it's effective, I think, end of May is the time period that we've chosen. So we're balancing on a number of fronts. We're being very conservative as to what we're spending. So the directors have all gone through their departments, says what will I not spend to help mitigate this, or what is no longer practical to complete this year. The director Douglas has sent out an email saying that anything that's not essential for you to purchase this year. So we're trying to mitigate in what we're doing today. As it progresses and we get a little more idea of where the actual number will land, then we'll need to look at some bigger options, which are some of the ones, reserves, etc., that you see listed in the report. Until we get a closer picture of that, it's difficult to say which of those would best be used. So we would look at where did the revenue loss center on, what would an applicable reserve be, or would it be a reserve? As well, we're ever mindful of what next year's budget will look like. So we don't want to pull together this year and then have there be a large impact on our residents and taxpayers next year, because we recognize that whatever is happening today, everyone is not going to be able to just bounce back to normal very quickly after. So our balancing act, if we want to call it that, which it is to look at what can we do now to contract, what bigger plays do we have as far as reserves or projects, etc., and how does that impact next year's budget to make sure that it will take us some time to get through things, but we want to see that bigger picture. So it's a little bit of a work in progress right now, but we also keep in mind that we need to keep doing things today, not to help ourselves in the future. So that's where you see some of these layoffs. That's where you see the looking at what we're doing. What do we not need to do to help us? So we don't want to be sitting 3 months from now saying, well, we should have done this and that. We want to turn all those stones over now in a responsible manner, though.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. One final question, please, Mr. Mayor, through you to CEO Chemnitz. We have a number of senior centers in the cities here. Of course, we have the best one in St. George's Ward at Dunlap Center. And has staff done anything to reach out to them? Some of the seniors could be at risk, and they really look forward to those programs, those great programs that we offer. So if you could just speak to that, and that's my final question, and I'll thank you in advance. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, staff, particularly in our CRCS department, have been very focused on the customers that they serve on a regular basis. And I will turn briefly over to Director Christie just to give you a brief summary, because they have been very active in this regard specifically.
Good afternoon, through you, Mr. Mayor. So we have been calling our older adult center members since we closed the buildings. We've been in touch, we've been checking up on them, and whenever possible, we've been referring to the Niagara region gatekeepers program. So if they need help, if they're isolated, if they need help accessing food, the region asked us to help in that regard. So we've gone from initially just calling to checking up on them to actually screening for potential other issues. So we have continued in that regard.
Councillor Sorrento, you finished? That was last question. Councillor Phillips, you're now up.
I've had some questions from residents in regards to exercise, if you want recreation. I know, for example, Sunset Beach, the gate is locked there, as is the cemetery. The gates are locked there. The question is, for example, at Sunset Beach, if people in Port Weller just wanted to, they can walk on through the park onto the beach. They're not congregating, you know, husband and wife in the evening. Even though with it being locked, is that okay that they can do that, or are they susceptible to a potential fine? The same with the pass of Walker's Creek. Obviously, they're not gated. They can't be gated because there's just too many accesses. And Malcolmson Park. Can couples walk through? I'm not talking about groups of large groups, but singles, couples walk through there without any concern of a bylaw enforcement officer coming to them and finding them.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this has been, I think, of the questions that we had. I'm just looking through. This has been, as I had mentioned in my opening remarks, this has been one of the items of most confusion for the public. It's very important, the social distancing, and it very quickly, when there's 1 and 2 and there's more coming very quickly, we can see larger groups. Our enforcement protocols will be to look for items or instances where they are not observing the social distancing. But you see that bylaw we've taken back for some more clarity. It is something that staff are struggling with. It is the best if everyone stays home, and if you don't go to those areas that where you may meet many others, and it does become difficult. So our bylaw enforcement officers would certainly be looking for the most egregious instances of violating those social distancing protocols. So that is why we're attempting to close as much as we can while still being reasonable. It is difficult as the weather gets better for people to continue to be in. However, just like our grocery trips and all of those things, we should be limiting those as much as we possibly can. So we're going to try to work with everyone, but we are going to, we will be out there looking to see people who are not observing those social distancing protocols.
I appreciate that, and I agree 100% as far as social distancing and staying at home whenever possible. Another obvious area which is very difficult to social distance is the Welland Canal Path. It's still, having driven up and down there a couple times this weekend, it is very busy. It's a narrow path, and people do the best, but that's a place that is still, widely used. And as far as the cemetery is concerned, I had a call yesterday from a resident, and the gates are all locked. I mean, you can park and still walk in, I guess, but to me, that's not a place where you're going to gather large groups. You're going to have maybe 1 or 2 family members. I'm not sure that that's one area that needs to be blocked off. So to me, that's something that perhaps your committee can discuss as to whether, if it's absolutely required, I guess, and if all other communities are doing the same, I guess we keep it locked. But it does create some stress with people who want to visit their loved ones at Victoria Lawn Cemetery.
For Mr. Mayor, it certainly, I understand that concern with the cemetery. I do have to say, though, it is an area of the city where we have experienced problems with larger groups in there. So that is something that we're bearing some attention to. And that is principally one of the reasons why those gates were closed, because we did have specific problems occurring there. So we're trying very much to manage common sense and good adherence to the protocols. But if we do find that there is not common sense being exercised, then we really do need to emphasize the point out in the public. So I do recognize it is difficult with the cemetery, but it is an area where we did have to bend some concern and time to, and we will continue to watch over that.
Thank you. And while I have the camera, Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Thank you
just to officially, and
you're freezing, Council. Evan, you want to jump in here?
It looks like it might just be a resolution on counselor side. It might just be like a bandwidth problem. So we can go back to the counselor in a second. We can see when his screen sort of goes back to normal, and then he can come back and finish at that time if you like.
Okay. For counselors who are looking to speak, if you go up to the top, you go under participants, and you can raise your hand there as well. So I want to make sure that if you are there, Evan, if you want to just take them through that quickly.
Yep. So counselors, if you're on your iPads, if you look to the top of the screen, you will see a button labeled participants. And when you open that up at the bottom, you'll see a raise hand icon. If you click on that, that will then notify all the individuals on the call that you wish to speak to the item. And then when the mayor calls you to speak, I'll unmute your microphone and I'll remove the raise hand icon from your screen as well.
Okay, Bill's talking. Bill, do you want to, he's back. Bill's back. He's moving in his chair.
and continue. Okay.
There you go.
I was just going to say, I don't know where we left off. Niagara Symphony Orchestra has canceled the rest of their events for the season. The Grape and Wine Festival, the Spring Sparkles are canceled, as well as a homegrown. And the Fall Festival, well, we'll just have to see hopefully we're going to be able to run that as it was, but we never know how this is going to go. And lastly, Canada Summer Games is going ahead full swing. The province has indicated, we had a meeting Friday. Mr. Oakes was part of that meeting, and Mr. Hamilton indicated that the province is very strongly supporting continuing with that construction. And unless things have changed since Friday, Canada Summer Games is go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Phillips. We now have Councillor Williamson. You're up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I don't always gush, but I think this is a particularly important time to do so. We owe a deep debt of gratitude to our CIO, to you, Mr. Mayor, the senior management team. You've risen to the occasion, and all municipal employees, as a matter of fact. Very trying times, and I want to share our thanks on behalf of council and the community for your inspiring efforts. I think that our approach has been an effective one. I think it's been appropriate. I think it's been sensitive to Councillor. So thank you sincerely.
Thank you.
To Councillor Phillips' point about the need to, I think, be a little bit fair-minded about not being too restrictive in terms of, particularly on linear parks, and we have the benefit of having more open spaces than some centers like downtown Toronto, the condo corridor and stuff like that, where they're going to have lots of issues, or New York City, where they're having problems because people are so tight together. We do have some open space, and I think people, for their physical and mental well-being, are going to need to get outside. And so I think we do have to be, careful in how we handle it. And I agree totally with everything that's been done. I know that some communities have gone as far, because there were cars on the roads, there were a less degree of traffic, that have actually closed some roadways and opened them up to pedestrian traffic. And it strikes me that the Welland Canal Parkway might be a potential opportunity that we could look at, if that's going to be an outlet where people can go out and get some exercise. And I do have a couple questions in terms of people's expectations about the neatness, the upkeep and conditions of our public spaces and areas outside. I take it that we're going to have to message to people that we may not be cleaning up leaves and messes in parks, and we're just going to have to deal with that through you, Mr. Mayor, to the CAO.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. We certainly are looking at all of our activities to see what is essential to. The most recent orders while they don't directly impact us, do give us an indication of where things may be going should things not turn around. So in looking at things, and municipal works and facilities have done a really, really fine-tuned job as to what is essential, what isn't, and what could we lay aside. Some of the things that the public may not see as essential, things as a sport field maintenance, etc., are things that we will continue doing to a certain extent, because if we don't for a great number of months, the work that we'll have to do to bring those things back will end up costing us more money, time, and resources, and we may lose even more time and use of them. So I would say that we've had extensive discussions about this, and so sometimes the public will see us doing something that they think, well, why is that essential? And it is because the long-term impact of us not doing that would then further cause us more money, resources, and then more time away from those facilities that the community does enjoy. So we'll try as much as possible to communicate those things out to the public to help them understand what we're thinking. We've sort of started down that path already, but we'll continue to do that, because it is like I said, it's a balancing thing. It's really, it's easy to say, well, just fixing the water main is the most important thing, we will not do other things, but there are other considerations. So.
Thank you very much. And through you, Mr. Mayor, to the fire chief. Chief, our firefighters are our employees that have potentially direct contact with people who may be infected. I just wonder if you could speak to our supplies of personal protective equipment, if we're okay with that, and if we've changed methods when we're moving into situations where our firefighters are in direct contact, excuse me, with people.
So through you, Mr. Mayor. So I can say we've done a couple of different things. One of the reasons that the tiered response agreements were changed by Niagara Emergency Medical Services was to limit the time that both paramedics and fire services were dealing with patients, so that if there was a COVID issue, that we wouldn't be affecting as many frontline staff. So reducing the tiered response agreement is a measure that was put in place to help protect both paramedic services and fire services. We've increased our cleaning in the fire stations to keep us healthy and the cleaning of our fire trucks to keep us healthy to respond in the first place. We've put in provisions to address the appropriate measures for personal protective equipment, whether those are the N95 masks. We do still have a supply of those. The city yesterday was able to secure a number of the surgical masks, which we can use in certain circumstances as well. We are a little bit better equipped than any other frontline agency because we have the ability to put on our self-contained breathing apparatus, which will give us a full protective from our face, from our eyes, nose, and mouths. So that will help us as well. So what we really have to do is just make sure that we can do our best to limit our exposure to people. And so the social distancing, the people still will hopefully do some of the calls for both fire and paramedics. So again, and this is a big picture item, because if we keep people out of the parks and we're not having ambulance or fire responding for incidents in the parks where people are getting injured, those people aren't going to hospital. If we can keep people off the roads and they're not getting in motor vehicle collision, then paramedics and fire and police don't have to respond to those incidents, and then hospitals don't get taxed as well. So there's a lot of big picture items that fire is involved in, and we think we've got all the necessary precautions in place. Having said that, they change regularly too.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor. And next up, got Councillor Kushner, followed by Councillor Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the questions I get, and this is not only refers to the city, but the province and the federal government. What's the cost of the coronavirus to the communities, to the federal government? And I found that report from our staff to be very helpful, that the cost would be 2.4 million. And to me, the 2.4 million doesn't mean that much to our residents, but the tax impact does. And I think it's important to stress that if we didn't do the mitigation options that staff referred to, that the impact on taxes would be the tax increase of 2.2%. So staff is correct that we do have to look at all mitigation options. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kushner. If I can ask our Economic Director, Brian York, just to provide a macro picture of the economic impact, because I think it supports what you're saying, Councillor Kushner, about what the community needs to understand of the local impact on the economy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Kushner. So what you've seen in the report is that we've gone and surveyed regionally 10,000 businesses. In St. Catharines, we have a little over 800 responses. And while we're mining the data today, I can tell you that it's not good. We have the majority of those businesses aren't operating. They're operating at a skeleton crew if they are deemed to be essential. The number of calls we're getting regarding essential services is a little bit astounding. It's not the norm for our staff to tell somebody that they can't be open, but we've been working with, they become good community partners. They understand that this has a global reach. And it's time to slow down, shut down. And I don't have a figure for you today on impact, but we will have a report shortly through the Mayor's Rapid Response Team that we'll share with Council. So thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you to the Director of Economic Development. Got Councillor Garcia, you're up next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a number of questions, but the first one is I would like to ask you to comment One of the hot spots and the concerns we hear in the community and through public health is the seniors residences and nursing homes. And I just wonder if you, from your perspective, could update us in terms of what is being done and if there is anything that at the city level we can do in terms of helping with social distancing and encouraging no visitations and all the other measurements that have to be taken.
So I could speak a broad scale perspective on that, Councillor Garcia, is that you are correct. The long-term care homes have instituted the no visitor policy that's been in place now, I believe, since either March 14th, 15th, or 16th. Within that period of time, the only outbreak, or not an outbreak, the only incident we've had in the city of St. Catharines was at Ina Grafton. And again, there was very minimal exposure at the time. To date, we don't have an outbreak in any of our facilities here in St. Catharines. We do have, I believe now 4 in Welland and 2 in Niagara Falls. And again, some of those are private long-term care facilities, and I don't know if any of them are regional long-term care facilities. So the effort needs to be protecting the most vulnerable and older adults in our community. I think the message is stay home and stay safe. The more that we could stay home, the better opportunity that those who are more susceptible to this won't get COVID-19. So unlike what we've seen at Pinecrest and Bobcaygeon, we seem to at least be in Niagara managing our long-term extended care homes, meaning either the private operators or the region's homes itself. They seem to be doing an okay job in a very challenging time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, my next question, and I'd like to thank staff like Councillor Williamson for what they're doing, and also the report is very helpful. Obviously, for any small business and a corporation our size, cash flow is always a key. And I know the report says that Ms. Douglas is going to be working on cash flows, and that we're going to get a financial update to council at a later date. I would like to ask for you, the CAO, and Ms. Douglas, when will we have that update? And once we have a model, I know the situation is fluid and it's going to keep changing from week to week, but once we have a model of the key variables that we're working with that affect our cash flow, I would think that we could at least get a rough update at every council meeting, if that's not too onerous.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So there is, Councillor correctly recognizes that there's 2 aspects at play here. There is the actual financial position of the city, which will have its implications as we go through, and we'll see where that is by the end of the year. I mean, we'll assess before, but we'll bring ourselves to a close of the year and see how that rolls forward into the next year. The other side of it is a more immediate concern regarding actual cash flow, because as you know, the predominant funding for us is our tax base, and we have changed and modified those due dates. So while I would not say it's necessarily a cash flow model, what finance is doing on a regular basis is forecasting if, as we've changed the due dates, our large sums of money will come in at a more later basis with a different time frame, and what are the outflows, what do we need to pay the region. We've already heard from the province how those things have changed. What other, for the education I was referring to there, we have various different choices we can make. So we instructed, and finance has started right away at the beginning to see where those levers are that we can change and either slow down the payments going in because we don't have the facility to speed the payments, going out because we don't have the facility to speed the payments coming in. We also are mindful that many of the suppliers from the business that we did carry on prior to this pandemic, and within it truly, or some of them are small businesses, and we need to also be cognizant of the fact that we do not want to cut off the cash flow to there. So finance monitors that on a regular basis every day and ensures to see how far along the cash will go. There are very large payments that come out on a regular basis. So they're monitoring that. At this point in time, we don't see a concern to that. We have short-term investments that we can cash. We can use the money that effectively is in our reserves, because we know for the most part, the larger items of tax base will eventually come in. So it's a cash flow thing they're monitoring. Is it a hard and fast model where we would be reporting to council to say we're okay to this date or that date? It's fluid and changes every day. So, I mean, I feel comfortable that we don't have a concern, and we would be coming to council well in advance of us having a concern. At this point in time, we're able to manage where we are and where we see the progression of this situation going forward. So I would say we would report to council the financial impact, the cash flow we are able to manage, and we will be in front of council if very well in advance of us seeing that there is a concern there.
Thank you very much for that. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have a number of individual questions of individual departments. First of all, with legal services, I just wanted to ask you, city solicitor, what is happening with OMB and LPAT hearings? Is this something that is proceeding under these circumstances, or are they on hold?
Heather?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, LPAT is not holding any hearings. We just got an update today from them. They have staff in the building, and they are attempting to sort of bring some administrative procedures back online, but very, very slowly. They're certainly not scheduling any mediations or any hearings at this time. All of those have been suspended by the province's regulation. But to the extent that we can, potentially move some administrative matters forward, they are attempting to provide that level of service, but it's certainly not at the speed or volume that we would typically see.
Thank you very much. Next question through you, Mr. Mayor, to Planning and Building Services. I noticed the report says that the study on the cannabis control bylaw will have to be delayed. I just want to double check that. I believe that we're safe because in terms of the timing, it can be extended for a year. Pardon me.
Through the mayor to the councillor, yes, that's correct. The interim control bylaw initially is in place for a period of 1 year. Towards the end of that time period, should we need additional time to undertake the land use planning implication study, then we would come to council with a bylaw requesting an extension. So that is very possible in this time frame. As the Director of Finance and the CAO spoke to earlier, we continue to evaluate projects that are on the books for this year to see if it's viable to move forward this year or if they should be postponed or canceled outright. At this time, we're recommending that that be one of the consultant studies that we delay in the interim until we have a better idea on timing and how the remainder of this situation is going to play out.
Thank you very much. And through you, Mr. Mayor, a question of the clerk's office. I wonder if they can update us on whether they have made any progress in terms of developing methodology for public participation required while these electronic meetings are happening.
So we are continuing to monitor what comes out from other municipalities, speaking with our other area municipalities of what they're doing, what experiences they're having, to see if we can move forward with having interested delegates log in as a video on Zoom as well. So that's something we're hoping to have more information on before the next meeting. At this point, we are challenged. We're trying to balance the risk of things like hacking and sharing the link for the meeting broadly versus making sure that if we have somebody coming in to participate, we know that they're not going to try to take over the meeting, given that it is published live. So it is something we're continuing to monitor and look at what we can do to increase participation.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, my last two items are, pardon me, for information only for the public. And one of them is if perhaps I could get the deputy CAO to comment. But we understand that as of the latest latest changes by the province regarding construction, that the current construction on the piers will have to stop in the near future if it hasn't already.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. We haven't got confirmation yet from Department of Fisheries and Oceans, but it was discussed, and I believe that the site for the piers has been closed for non-essential purposes. I'd also note to Councillor Phillips that the Canada Games facility has also been shut down as a result of the non-essential order that the province brought forward.
Thank you very much. And my last point, Mr. Mayor, and I'm not sure who to address it to, is we continue to get calls and emails about whether something is an essential service or not. And I think we should share with the public what the best way is for anybody to report something they're concerned about. I assume is phoning citizens first, but if I could get some clarification on that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, we have on social media and information out to where to call. So during the day, up until our 4:30 time period, it is citizens first. So our regular number of 905-688-5600. After hours, after the 4:30 time period, it is the Niagara Region's dispatch line at 905-984-3690. And then they triage and dispatch back to us. We do keep our citizens first staff in later to help because the region needs to have someone to call and talk to ensure that we are able to respond. We have heard also some complaints, or not that we've heard complaints, but that the province has opened a form regarding if anyone sees evidence of price gouging. And so that's, if you check our website, we have all those information numbers there. But predominantly the things that we're dealing with are the businesses operating that are do not conform with the essential services provisions and the social distancing and the gathering provisions.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Garcia. I don't see any further questions of council, so we'll move to a motion for Councillor Cisco to move the report. And I need a seconder. Seconder, Council Townsend, second. I'll look to the clerk to call the question.
Okay, we have Councillor Cisco.
Yep.
Yeah. Councillor Sorrento.
Yes.
Councillor Townsend.
Yes.
Councillor Williamson.
Yes.
Councillor Dodge.
Yes.
Councillor Garcia.
Yes.
Councillor Harris.
Yes.
Councillor Kushner.
Yes.
Councillor Littleton.
Yes.
Councillor Miller.
Yes.
Councillor Phillips.
Yes.
We may have lost Councillor Porter, but Councillor Porter, are you there? We'll mark her as absent for this vote. Mayor Senzik.
Yes.
And that's carried.
Okay, thank you for this. We go to 2.1, which is Councillor Williamson. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2.1 recommendation that report FMS-035-2020 regarding 2019 statement of council remuneration and expenses to be received for information and that in future reports on council and mayor expenses, the ecological sustainability effects of international travel be acknowledged and considered, and that no further action be taken, and that's moved forthwith. However, we do need lots more action. All I've done here is to tweak the wording to allow me to move this to discussion, since according to our procedure, this is now required. It is a tweak, but details are often important, and to me, this is an important one. There are two major threats facing humanity: the immediate and real one called coronavirus, and the longer term and more gradual but potentially more devastating effects of climate change. I could have chosen other items in this agenda to point out the fact we need to be taking the issue of climate change and broader environmental issues more seriously. It is virtually impossible to claim that there's no environmental impact on nearly every action we take. There are impacts and they matter, and it's critically important that they be acknowledged and considered in the decisions that we make. If we as the leaders and role models of our community do not demonstrate that we understand this, it will be that much more difficult to raise awareness about the plight of our one and only planet with everyone else. This municipality does big stuff, which expends resources and creates carbon footprints, and we must identify areas we can target for these reductions. Air travel is but one example, an obvious example of an activity which creates a disproportionately larger ecological impact. In the last few weeks, the rules have changed dramatically, and I fully understand that we are in a crisis. These are not normal times, and everyone is under stress. Nonetheless, our reporting and actions must reflect the urgency of the climate change declaration we passed unanimously, as well as the higher expectations Councillor Miller's motion set in place since that time. Simply put, my hope is that the section on environmental sustainability in future reports will reflect this reality. That our actions have consequences on the planet cannot be denied, and we must do our part. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Williamson. And I got Councillor Sorrento, you got your hand up?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Motion to refer to staff for more details.
Okay.
Comprehensive report.
Before there's my apologies, if I could just ask, who's the author of the report? That's Douglas? Because the report has to be approved or has to be received and approved under the Municipal Act. The second point that Councillor Williamson is making, you can possibly refer that one, but I just want to make sure through Director Douglas.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. With regards to the report, yes, it is a report that is required under the Municipal Act, and it is required at the end of March, so we are a little past that due date. I would suggest that the recommendation amendment that is being made by Councillor Williamson, that perhaps that could be referred to staff, and I think it would be an item that would more appropriately fall under an amendment to future reports. However, this report is a legislated requirement under the Municipal Act that we need to report at this time.
Okay, Evan, can you pull up the screen so that they can see the motion? There you go. Okay, so for the councillors reading this, so we got to make sure that the report itself, if we can receive the report for information. And the second part, Councillor Sorrento, are you asking that to be referred to council for a policy development? Councillor Sorrento?
Mike's not on. Oh, there it is. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Yes, and my apologies for jumping ahead with respect to the procedural process. So yes, that would be the amendment to which I'm referring to be referred.
Okay.
Tuesday.
Okay. So council understands that. So we're asking for this to be split. We can vote on the actual receiving for information and statement of council remuneration expenses. And then the second bullet point, the second point will be the referral to staff for the policy development. Councillor Williamson, can I ask you to weigh in on that? Just
yeah.
Are you comfortable with that? Yeah.
You can't hear me?
I can hear you. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good with that. But it really, like I said, it didn't really matter to which report it got attached. That happened to be the first one where I noticed something. So I'm good. I just would like to see our methodology change and that we take that environmental sustainability piece more seriously. That's my main message here.
Okay. And so I think, so let's vote on the receiving the information to the deputy clerk, and then we'll do the referral.
And so moving the motion, I have Councillor Williamson. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second. Councillor Phillips.
Councillor Kushner said it first, so we'll go with Councillor Kushner on that one.
So Councillor Williamson,
Yes.
Councillor Dodge,
Yes.
Councillor Garcia,
Yes.
Councillor Harris,
Yes.
Councillor Kushner,
Yes.
Councillor Littleton,
Yes.
Councillor Miller,
Yes.
Councillor Phillips,
Yes.
Councillor Porter,
Yes.
Councillor Cisco,
Yes.
Councillor Sorrento,
A hearty yes.
Councillor Townsend,
Yes.
Mayor Senzik,
Yes.
and that's carried.
Okay, and so for the referral and direction to staff and Councillor Williamson, I think what you're asking for, it's not just international travel. I think you're talking about travel in general. So if we can update our travel policy, that would reflect the ecological sustainability. I think that's what you're asking for, because it's not just, it takes the same amount of jet fuel to fly from Toronto to Vancouver than it does to travel from Toronto to Europe. So I don't think it's just international travel. You're probably just looking at how we're traveling as a community, as councillors, correct?
Yes, and other activities too. Well, it's not really specific just to travel.
Okay,
So,
but
but
from
that's
this
fine like that.
perspective, it'll come back. Okay. So a referral, all in favor of the referral, say aye.
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 Okay, that's carried on the referral. Thank you for that, Councillor Williamson. Okay, there's no in-camera sessions, and staff are continuing to explore procedures and best practices for safely hosting in-camera sessions. As such, electronic in-camera sessions will not be held at this time. So we're trying to figure that one out. There's a lot of moving parts, as the deputy clerk has talked about, in terms of our abilities to go in camera and be in camera without being in violation of not being able to protect what we're talking about. So we're trying to work through that. And I just want to give thanks to our clerk's department for working hard to try and figure what we can do there. Adjourned general committee, council's reconvened. And so we have notice to ratify forthwith recommendations, and that council adopt those items approved forthwith by general committee on Wednesday, April 8th, 2020. Moving the motion to ratify forthwith, I have Councillor Dodge.
Yes, yes, Mr. Mayor, so moved.
And seconded by Councillor Phillips, I believe.
Yes.
Okay, so these are the ratifications. Anyone opposed? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 That's carried. Okay, now for the next regular meeting of council, we have, and we've got a notice of motion coming up as well. The next meeting of council, I need a motion, and this is whereas the COVID-19 outbreak, so it's on the screen in front of us, and the provincial and federal emergency declarations, many staff and council have been working from home. Therefore, be it resolved that council approve the next meeting of council be scheduled from Monday, April 20th to at 6:30 p.m. to Wednesday, April 22nd at 2:30 p.m. to allow for certain members of our team or of our council team who are doing online learning for their students. Be it resolved that staff provide appropriate notice to the public and the media. So I have Councillor Sorrento making the motion.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Townsend, I believe.
Yes.
Okay, do I have any hands up? Okay, I don't see any hands. So looking to the deputy clerk to record the vote.
Councillor Sorrento,
Yes.
Councillor Townsend,
Yes.
Councillor Williamson,
Yes.
Councillor Dodge,
Yes.
Councillor Garcia,
Yes.
Councillor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Kushner,
Yes.
Counselor Littleton,
Yes.
Counselor Miller,
Yes.
Counselor Phillips,
Yes.
Counselor Porter,
Yes.
Counselor Cisco,
Yeah.
and Mayor Sendzik.
Yes.
That's carried.
Okay, thank you for that, Council. Councillor Williamson, you have a notice of motion for the next meeting of Council.
Yes, thank you. The wording is that the procedural bylaw be amended to restore councillors' ability to move items into the discussion agenda.
Okay, so you'll put some more wording around that as we lead into the next meeting?
Yes, I've reached out to staff to help flesh that out.
Okay. All right. Are there any other notices of motion that someone wishes to bring forward? Okay, I don't see any hands up.
What is it?
Oh, it's Councillor Williamson. It's a notice of motion, and it's to do with the procedural bylaw pertaining to the agenda under consent items and the ability to bring consent items forward, I believe.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Are there any report requests? If you do so, put them in writing, please, so that we get them in advance. Readings of bylaws. We have a motion that the bylaws listed on council agenda A to H, save and except for G, be read a first time and considered and passed, and that they be signed and executed by the mayor and the city clerk. Moving this motion and passing of the bylaws, I have Councillor Miller, I think with some help.
No, just me.
All right, and seconding this motion, I have Councillor Littleton. Okay.
Yes.
So Deputy Clerk to record the vote.
Counselor Miller,
Yes.
Counselor Phillips,
Yes.
Counselor Porter,
Yes.
Counselor Cisco,
Yes.
Counselor Sorrento,
Yes.
Counselor Townsend,
Yes.
Counselor Williamson,
Yes.
Counselor Dodge,
Yes.
Counselor Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Kushner,
Yes.
Counselor Littleton,
Yes.
Mayor Sendzik,
Yes.
and that's carried.
Okay, we're going to do ABCs. If I can ask Councillor Townsend just for a brief update on the Performing Arts Center with the new hire.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to council, I just wanted to give a brief update. I want to also thank you for the leadership that you've shown amongst and across the community during this difficult time. It's amazing to see the way you've stepped up. You, Shelley, CAO Covenants, Deputy CAO David Oakes, and all city staff during this time. So thank you so much for that. I also want to congratulate Colleen Smith for being the successful candidate to take over the executive director position at First Ontario Performing Arts Centre. She joins us from Roy Thompson Hall, Macy Hall, Theatre Calgary, some pretty extensive experience. We're quite fortunate to have her join our community. And I ask that council reach out, send her a welcome message, and welcome her to our community. She's going to be a strong and outstanding leader during this time as we progress forward. So thank you for that.
All right, thank you, Councillor Townsend, for those kind words, and also to you and Councillor Garcia for being a part of the hiring for the First Ontario Performing Arts Centre. That wasn't an easy process, a lot of moving parts, and I think you've landed on a very strong person who's going to be able to lead the Performing Arts Centre out of a lot of these issues that we're facing today through the loss of attendance and revenue. So congratulations for a job well done there. Councillor either Littleton or Councillor Williamson, do you have anything to update on the library board?
We have a meeting coming up. There have been discussions, but really no firm decisions have made. There, I believe some part-time people have been on temporary, are now on temporary layoff, but we haven't officially had a meeting to really dig into matters.
Okay. Next council meeting, if you can, I'll ask you for an update just to let the public know what's going on in there. I know CAO Chemnitz has been working with the executive director at the Ken Shu, and I know that he's been a part of some of the internal discussions with the commissions and boards. So I want to thank you for that. Councillor Miller, Councillor Dodge, in terms of the transit, any update that you want to provide?
Go ahead.
Similar, we offered transit operators temporary layoffs, and we've also reduced service pretty significantly. And because we have they've gone because we have back of the bus boarding only. Just a reminder to the public, we're really asking that you only use public transit for essential trips right now. Drivers are very much at risk as they interact with the public every day. So please restrict it to essential trips only, like to work or to the grocery store, to the pharmacy. And I'll pass it over to Councillor Dodge if he has anything to add.
No, Mr. Mayor, I think he covered everything.
All right, thanks for the update, and for the next meeting, if
Mr. Mayor?
any further. Yep.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask a question, please?
What's it about, Councillor?
It's about transit.
Okay, same topic.
Thank
okay.
you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to my esteemed colleagues, can you just give us an update as to what's happening with the Paratransit? Now, has that been scaled back? Because that's a very vital service. Please, thank you.
I don't believe Paratransit has been scaled back, but maybe Councillor Dodge. I guess one update we should provide, if we didn't know already, is that we have also transferred a lot of the executive power to the chair of the Transit Commission and to the general of St. Catharines Transit. So we too haven't had a meeting last month, March, either. So if Councillor Dodge heard anything differently about Paratransit, my understanding it's still operating. CAO Camden.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to add in that the transit staff have been closely in, sorry, I'm getting some real echo here, causing me to get confused, but the transit staff have been in close contact with us. They've made really good, solid decisions based on the data of keeping their drivers safe, the riders, and so I really feel through this, our transit leadership have been leaders within the region as far as transit services and making good decisions.
Councillor Strength, if I can ask, if you could put that into an email, we can send it to Graham Morrison, and he can provide you a fuller detail of the service.
I'll do that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councillor Williamson, you have a question here? Oh, just wait, it's got to be unmuted. There you go. Now you go.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just back to the library. There is a person in my house who's not happy they can't get books out of the library. That's for sure. The library has expanded the online offerings. There's some pretty good resources out there now. For example, ancestry.ca is actually free. You normally had to be in the library to get it. And there's some other platforms that are available free. So residents who are looking to do those kinds of things, it's kind of an unusual opportunity to be able to take advantage of some services that would normally cost money. And I will give you, I'll give the rest of council. Councillor Littleton and I will provide an update after our meeting.
Okay, thank you for that. That's greatly appreciated. And thank you for all your efforts in working with your boards and commissions. I do have minutes to receive that while council receive and file the minutes of the advisory committees of councils presented. And Councillor Garcia, I have you for the motion there.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Williamson.
So moved.
Okay, and seconded, and all in favor, just say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, seeing none, just I do want to give a shout out as we go into adjournment. Just want to say thank you to also Rankin Construction. They have donated 1,000 PPE masks to the frontline healthcare workers as well, in addition to the other companies that I had mentioned. So you're seeing a lot of community businesses that come out, community-oriented businesses coming forward. So keep up the great work, everybody. And I think you're all doing an amazing job. It's not easy for any of us to be in this new environment, but as counselors, you're doing your part and you're keeping your constituents up to date. And to the staff, I know how hard you're working. Shelley, I don't think Shelley turns off her phone first thing in the morning until late at night. She's taking calls with other CAOs from across the region with emergency folks. I know that our EOC team is continuing to push forward. So everyone's doing a lot of great work. It's not going unnoticed. Keep it up, and looking forward to seeing you in this space again. And also, anyone wants to tune into Kevin Townsend's live on Instagram?
Yes.
I'll be there tomorrow. I don't have any talent, but I'll be there tomorrow night.
The winner
right,
gets a free scooter.
I've got a motion to adjourn from Councillor Phillips.
So moved, Mr. Mayor. I
And
move this
seconded
meeting.
by Councillor Dodge.
Yes.
All right. Have a great Easter, Passover. We'll be meeting before Ramadan, I believe, but just want everyone to have a wonderful upcoming holiday weekend in the best way that you can do it. So all in favor of adjourning the meeting, say aye.
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 Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Happy Easter, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Miss everybody.
Happy Passover. Happy Easter.